We are live. We are live. Welcome to college football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button. If you like our content, share the video with your family and your friends if you want to support this college football rebel outpost channel with a donation. Hit the $, make a comment, and we'll get to you super chat as quick as we possibly can. Everybody, come on in. Everybody, come on in. Everybody's welcome. Everybody's welcome. Even the evil Badgers, even the crazy Hawkeyes, even the ones who are drunk on red Kool-Aid, those Cornhuskers, those Auburn Tigers, those Georgia Bulldogs, Roll Tide, the Hurricanes, the Seminoles, the Jayhawks, the Blue Devils. Come all in to the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway in Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend. Do not be afraid to be a legend. With your comments in the chat room, with your phone calls later in the show. We've got ourselves another stacked show today. Judge Cooper. We're going to be reading an article, a short little article from the Tallahassee Democrat. Deny. Judge Cooper has denied all the ACC's motion to dismiss. We're going to have simultaneous court proceedings going on in the state of North Carolina, going on in the state of Florida, and we're probably going to hit the trifecta. I got a feeling that probably, most likely, I don't know for sure, of course I don't, but most likely we're going to hit the trifecta of simultaneous court cases in North Carolina, in Florida, and in South Carolina, Leon County, Mecklenburg County, and Pickens County. We'll see. We'll see about that. We've also hit the trifecta today at college football's peak around the corner. If you've missed it, we've released episode 404. That episode is for everybody. So when you get a chance, take a look at that episode 40404. And then for our members, and if you want to become a member, if you want to become an early peak Cloak and Dagger member, go to the description box below the video, hit the link, hit the join button, and become a member. For those who are members, right now, we released episode 41, I believe it is. 41. Take a look at that. Pack 2 and Friends. Those schools that are on the stage. Take a look at what we presented today. So we did an episode for everybody. We did an episode for our members. And now we're doing a live show. So we've hit the trifecta. Also, we're going to be talking about a really good article written by the great Matt Baker, Tampa Bay Times, going through the history of Florida State. The 1995 notes. It's just an interesting story. Take a look back in the history of Florida State and their dalliances with conference realignment in the past. Ricky, thank you so much. I do appreciate your incredible generosity. Holy smokes. Gifted 5 memberships. Kyle Visser, Tim Bells, Brother Monzoon, nobody in particular, and Joaquin Morales. You are all been gifted a membership by the incredible generosity of Ricky Tungate. Ricky, Kyle, Tim, Brother Monzoon, nobody in particular, and Joaquin, you are all hereby knighted Cloak and Dagger. Thank you, Ricky. I do appreciate your incredible generosity once again. Please, the new members, when you get a chance, not now. Don't do it now, Tim Bales. Don't do it now, Brother Monzone. Nobody in particular. Don't do it now. Don't go be looking at the members only episode, Cloak and Dagger, episode 41. You've got time to do that later tonight, after dinner. But right now, we've got a very important live show. But congratulations to all of you. And when you get a chance, Kyle Visser, Tim Bells, I see Tim Bells has already thanked Ricky. Brother, nobody in particular, Joaquin, say thanks to Ricky for his generosity. Marcus Williams, keep up the great work. Greg, go blue from Arizona. Thank you, Marcus Williams. I appreciate, again, your generosity, your super chat. Go blue, Michigan Wolverines. I'm going to be doing the breakdown. The Big Ten order of finish prediction coming Monday for the Big Ten. I got raked over the coals by ACC. The PATC community, who's fans of the ACC schools, I got raked over the coals on my prediction for the ACC. The Big 12 fans in the PATC community raked me over the coals for my Big 12 predictions. And Marcus Williams and pretty much all the Big 10 fans are going to be raking me over the coals come Monday. Thank you, Coy. Coy is a member for a 5th month. Holy smokes. Corey, you've been one of the originals. Thank you so much for your generosity, too, over the months. Thank you so much. You are hereby knighted once again, cloak and dagger. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So what am I talking about? Oh, so we're going to be going through an interesting story by Matt Baker. And then, you know, and I say we, and I haven't mentioned his name in a while, but BTM, short for Big Ten Man. He was the one who, over the years, has helped me break stories locally and nationally, and had a lot to do with the USC story. And BTM, short for Big Ten Man, BTM and Associates. People on the money perch. Me and BTM had a very interesting conversation with somebody on money perch, but I'm not going to give this school, not going to do that. There's a reason for it. It's not Arizona State money perch, but it's a different money perch in the Big 12. Not a decision maker, not someone who works for the university, someone who's donated their resources to the university in more than one way. We had a very interesting conversation with this person. And I think it's fair to speculate. This is only speculation. Now, if you notice, the title of the show is, Will the Big 12 choose to use any private equity for conference expansion? Question mark. So this is speculation. We do not have information that the Big 12 is going to use any of this private equity money. If they strike a deal with the private equity, private capital, there is no reporting on it. We've not reported on it that they're going to use any of this money for conference expansion. However, there are people, boosters, money people, who believe the Big 12, if the opportunity presents itself, will use private equity for conference expansion. We had a lot of questions. We received a lot of answers. Some of it seems logical. Some of it seems a little bit off the wall. But all of it is the belief that Brett Yormark is going to go for broke. He's not going to do a 15 to 20%. He's not going to... Now, we don't know. First of all, we don't know if a deal has been struck. We don't know how close of a chance the deal has been struck. We don't know the parameters. We don't know what needs to happen to get every Big 12 school on board. But for this certain person, money perch in the Big 12, when we can't give the school out, that was one of the, we can't do that. Not on this live show. But for Brett Yormark to give out 15 to 20% or whatever that percentage is of the conference that they can pay back later, they can gain back later, it's got to be more according to what this person was telling us, it's got to be more than just gambling on if we get more money for recruits, therefore we're going to win more games, therefore we're going to get a bigger media rights deal in the future. No, it's got to be, we can take this money, we can take advantage of another conference, we can scoop up some big time value programs and increase the value of our conference day one. Knowing that at the very least we're going to be able to buy back or pay forward the money that we get from private equity. Conference expansion, there may be an opportunity. Maybe an opportunity for the Big 12 to strike with that private equity money to help a couple programs to get out of the ACC to increase the Big 12 value day one, not day 365, not 3 years down the road, not 6 years down the road where they get their new media rights, but day one. And this person had been talking about this with other people at the university that he has given his resources to. It's to the point where they've talked about more than one option. Now they're just talking. This person is not a decision maker. He does not work for the university, but he'd been having conversations with somebody who possibly is a decision maker at a university. That's one of the reasons we can't give the name of the university that this person is a money perch of. It is a fascinating situation because the ACC, now Commissioner Jim Phillips was asked about equity, possibly using equity, and he didn't say anything. I cannot find any reason how the ACC could. I don't know how a private equity firm could possibly invest in the conference right now when two of the highest football branded schools are suing the conference and the school is suing them back. I think the Big 12, at least there's people thinking that the Big 12 is going to press their advantage. Just like what they did with the Pac-12. When they jumped ahead of the Pac-12, when they struck that media deal, when Brett Yormark knew the media market was tightening at that time, and he knew that he had won the exposure war against the Pac-12 by stepping up and signing that deal on October 30th, 2022. And then he proceeded to squeeze, to communicate constantly with Colorado and with Arizona, which is a kind of an untold story. And he got the job done. Well, I think he might be trying to do something, a different avenue with the ACC schools. And he might be using some of that private equity money to get the job done, to increase his value of his conference day one. So I'm going to go through that conversation. I'm going to go through that story that we have. But I'm asking you, do you think the Big 12 will use any of their private equity money for expansion? Do you think they should use it for expansion? Or do you think they should be just using the money to the schools to to help them for the next 6 years be able to match the $22 million a year salary distribution coming from the school to their student athletes? we're going to get into that very interesting conversation that we had with a money perch in the Big 12. Before we get to all of this, college football mafia, we've been saying this for months. Private equity plus ACC buyouts. Hello, college football mafia. Keep it up, PATC. Thank you so much, early peak member, for the 6 month. Holy smokes. Thank you, college football mafia, for your generosity and for your friendship. The whole crew, thank you so very much. You are hereby knighted, cloak and dagger. You know, I have not taken any time in speculating on this. College football mafia has. I'm sure there's other college football YouTube channels that have done so. We have not. We have not. But the conversation we had was so interesting that I had to eliminate some other stories that we were going to talk about today. We're going to have to push it off for the weekend. It was quite the interesting story. Quite the interesting conversation. So we do have to hit it. It is speculation. But I can tell you this. The conversation between the money perch and members of the administration inside a Big 12 university that has been ongoing in regards to this possibility. In some of the possibilities, I'm going to get a lot of like, Greg, you're absolutely nuts. That would never happen. We shall see. Let me first thank everybody who's come on in. Thomas RTR, thank you so much. Lee Gators, Lee Go Gators, Muggy Wow, we're live. Kyle Visser, Rock and Rant, wait again. R Webb is in the house. Nick Boardman, Corey, Skaven, yes, Ted Evans, Tim Bales, David Floyd, Don in Kansas, Jeff Olson. This is not show 2. This is our first live show of the day. Evil Badger, Jeff Olson. No, we did an episode and we've done 2 episodes. This is our first live show. And we may have to come on later on again tonight. College football world is crazy, but this is our first live show. Randy Taylor, go for broke. I think Randy Taylor has the same mentality as Brett Yormark. It could be. It could be. Les Austin Jr. is in the house. Congo, Rodnick, so baby, we've got the drums. Buckshot Kid is in the house. The Architect. T-Duck, Pack 4, Block and Expansion. Sorry, FSU Clemson. Matt Neeson is in the house. Ricky is here. Jay Chapman, Expedition. Greg, Movie Time Blues. Greg, did you watch Tim Sullivan interview from 2 days ago? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And Tim Sullivan said, if you go listen to that, Tim Sullivan said, and I've heard reports on Virginia possibly wanting to leave the conference or being part of, North Carolina, Virginia going to the SEC, whatever. Tim Sullivan actually wasn't reporting that. It's not like he's heard it. He was saying, I've read reports, and there's been reports out there that North Carolina and Virginia would be the top targets of the SEC. In fact, we've said it, but a whole bunch of people have said it. So I did read it. I mean, I did hear it. But just to be clear, Tim Sullivan wasn't reporting based on his own sources that Virginia is about to do something. Anyways, but I do thank you, Movie Time Blues, for sending that to me. Bill G is in the house. Richard L is here. St. James, Tracy FSU. Thank God it's Friday. Go Knowles. Jane Hoke is in the house. Charlie Atwood is here. Go Black 45. Sam is here. Raider Vision is in the house. Ready for a good weekend. No question about that. Squirrel is here. I think it's 5 schools to block. I don't know what you guys are talking about. 4 or 5 schools to block. Somebody explain what you guys are. I don't get it. Anyways, Big Lubbock is here. You're talking about Big Ten. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Joe Z is here. Morris Simmons. Nick Kelso. Nathan Jones is in the house. Don in Kansas. Steve Moser, Michael Smith, Anthony Carlson, Terry Kane, MGC Sooner. Soap is here. Use the money to pay the settlement from the lawsuits. Jeff Kais is here. Jen Fari is here. Whatever the Big 12 does, if they strike the private equity deal, and I think they will, whatever they do, it has to be where they can up the value of their conference. So, now nothing is a sure shot. Like, it's a gamble, obviously. But it's also risky not to do anything. Like John Wilner's article said. Now, John Wilner said, get that money and make sure that all the schools can get to the $22 million mark, and you got to win football games, and that's how you can increase the value of your conference. Well, if you expand with the right teams, you might be able to increase the value of your conference day one. We're going to get into it. We are going to get into it. Terry Kane, holy smokes. Terry Kane gifted 5 memberships to the community. The Architect, Immaculate, Mr. Hot Guy, Cornelius Green, Michael Morsey, and No Blooded was gifted a membership. All 5 of you and Terry Kane, you are hereby officially knighted. Cloak and Dagger. Holy smokes. Take a look. Go to our YouTube channel when you get an opportunity and go watch episode 41 of Early Pete Cloak and Dagger for members only. We talk about the matinee going on in the Holy Smokes Theater, Pack 2 and Friends. We know the schools on the stage. We know why. Now you know why. Fresno State was in an odd spot on the stage. Remember we reported that a couple months ago. They were on the right side of Boise State, and Boise State was at the center of the stage. There is a reason why. There's a reason why we do everything in the Holy Smokes Theater. We can't always talk about it the moment it happens, but eventually we get around to it. Anyways, go watch episode 41. It dropped about 4 hours ago, and we're going to pick up on that story on the next live show. Probably PATC Saturday is all right for PATC. Probably our live show tomorrow night. Thank you, Terry Kane, for your incredible generosity. Holy smokes. Minnesota Seminoles is here. Check it out is here. Got to win football games. Yeah, you got to win football games. You have to win football games. But there might be a more direct shot to increase the value of the conference, of the Big 12 conference. So let's get to it. We got a lot to get to before we talk about the conversation we had with the Big 12 money perch. First of all, this was a great story. These 1995 notes foreshadowed the Florida State versus ACC lawsuit, the great Matt Baker, Tampa Bay Times. Wow. What we learned from 2 afternoons pursuing the Florida State Library's special collections and archives. Job well done by Matt Baker and the Tampa Bay Times. Sometime in the summer of 1995, Florida State president took a black pen to the bottom right-hand corner of a letter and scrawled the questioning, threatening to blow up the college football landscape of 2024. Are we comfortable with our TV and other media rights? Talbot Sandy Day, I don't know how to say the name, Aliberte wrote. The answer at the time was yes. Florida State Administrator Frank Murphy told the president the Atlantic Coast Conference will not bother us on our underwriting dollars. No reason to add TV rights to the next ACC Council agenda. There is the letter. Florida State University President Talbot Sandy, at the time, asked about Florida State TV rights in the ACC on a letter about an upcoming ACC meeting. However, Murphy continued, let's be vigilant for anything that affects our abilities to raise revenue from a TV, radio, underwriting that connects to Olympic-type sports, baseball, etc. After almost 3 decades of vigilance, the answer to D. Alamberte's question has changed. The dueling, those notes were 1995. The dueling lawsuits between the Seminoles and the ACC center on Florida State's deep discomfort, if not distress, from the value of Florida State's TV rights. The Noles fear the league's ESPN payouts can no longer raise enough revenue to fund elite programs in football, baseball, softball, and everything else. Which means the first premonition of the ongoing 9-figure litigation might reside in a 2-sentence memo tucked away in a folder F14, Box 5, Collection HUA 218-064 of the Florida State Library's Special Collections and Archives. Spend a couple afternoons at the Claude Pepper Library and the Robert Manning Strother Library, as the Tampa Bay Times recently did, and you'll stumble upon other historical documents that read differently in the present uncertainty over the Seminoles and ACC future. Other conference options. The first conference realignment allusion we found came in the minutes of a March 1990 meeting. Florida State Athletic Board discussed 3 possibilities. 1, Florida State non-football home, the Metro Conference, could add up to 4 teams. 2, the Noles could pursue an all-sports conference with Miami, South Carolina, Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, the Mountaineers of West Virginia, Boston College, Rutgers, and Temple. Number 3, Florida State could do nothing. Neither. Now, this was 1990. Keep in mind, this was 1990. neither the ACC nor the SEC was mentioned. By the end of the summer of 1990, Florida State's president, then Bernard Bernie F. Sliger, felt comfortable discussing what he called the SEC, ACC, expanded Metro Conference versus the independent issue. Sort of. I expect the most encouraging declaration I can make, he said at a 1990 kickoff luncheon, is that we are seeking the best possible in most expert financial and sociological advice. From Burt Reynolds and Deion Sanders, he said jokingly, we assume. Sliger said former football coach Bill Peterson cautioned him that the state is too flat. The state is too flat to succeed in that coasting conference. Burt Reynolds, naturally recommended measuring the fields and picking the one with the longest yard. Joining the ACC. A turning point came in June 1990 when the Big Ten voted to add Penn State, a football independent just like Florida State at the time. But then Penn State went to a conference. 3 months later, Sliger accepted the ACC's offer. Florida State, 3 months after Penn State went to the Big Ten, Florida State went to the ACC. If we did not get into a conference, we were going to be out there alone, Sliger said, according to a news conference transcript in the Osceola. Sometimes we may think we are as good as Notre Dame. I don't believe that is actually the case, at least yet. Sliger said he agonized over the decision more than any in his tenure. When did he stop? I haven't. The ACC versus the SEC. 2 weeks. 2 weeks after Florida State picked up the ACC. 2 weeks. 2 weeks after Florida State picked the ACC. LSU Chancellor William E. Davis wrote Sliger with profound sadness about Sliger's impending retirement and the fact that we were unable to entice your university to become a member of the SEC. The natural rivalries and good fellowship afforded by Florida State University were most attractive, Davis wrote. Davis added that he was looking forward to seeing Sliger soon, an apparent reference to LSU's upcoming game at Florida State. Please take it easy on us. Our kids are a little but slow and very young and inexperienced. The 12th ranked Seminoles defeated the LSU Tigers 42-3. After Tigers athletic director Joe Dean publicly complained about Florida State's conduct, he wrote Sliger to apologize. Actually, Dean wrote, it's a tribute to your institution, both athletically and academically, because if I had not, along with other members of this league, felt so strongly about your membership, then nothing ever would have been said. I still feel that athletically you made a mistake, because I think your program deserves to play at the highest level. And because of your geographical location, Florida State fits perfectly in the Southeastern Conference. So this was back in 1990. This was right after Florida State chose to join the ACC. LSU wanted Florida State to become a member of the Southeastern Conference. And LSU told Florida State, I think you made a mistake. I think you made a mistake. Sliger replied that he would have been very, very comfortable very comfortable in the SEC, and overjoyed with either. Our coaches, faculty, and athletic board wanted the ACC very badly, however. As faculty representative, Chuck Earnhardt put it in the Osceola. I think it is unusual in the university setting, particularly with faculty, to get unanimity on anything, but there was a genuine unanimous feeling that this was the right thing for Florida State to do at the time. If there was any objections to the ACC, we didn't find them in the Florida State Library's Bernard F. Sliger collection, or Sliger. So the Tampa Bay Times could not find any objections within Florida State when they joined the ACC, made that decision in the late summer, probably early fall of 1990. Not putting Florida State in the Southeastern Conference was the best decision. Florida State alumnus Philip A. Browning wrote, as most Seminoles would say, the Gators can stick it in their ear. I love college football. I don't know. I mean, Philip A. Browning, I'm not sure. Well, anyways. Former Governor Leroy Collins praised the move, saying and other unnamed options, presumably the SEC, would have been the nesting grounds of unwholesome competitiveness. Governor Leroy Collins praised the move to the ACC. Going to the SEC would have been a nesting grounds of unwholesome competitiveness. The board's support had nothing to do with athletics. Florida State put itself in a league with schools of solid academic reputation, wrote George Bedell, a former Board of Regents interim chancellor. Football teams come and go. Former Georgia Administrator Leonard Kraft wrote, the academic history of an institution brings lasting fame. Money matters. Money matters. Again, Matt Baker, Tampa Bay Times, an incredible art article he released today. Florida State and the ACC are litigating a withdrawal payment, TV rights, ACC, Those numbers make Florida State's entrance fee laughable. The ACC commissioner sought $500,000, 1/8 of the league's assets, according to the Osceola transcript. That's $1.2 million in today's dollars, less than 1% of the cheaper part of a modern exit. The ACC commissioner sought $500,000 for Florida State to get into the conference. In 1995, Florida State's president received a request to send $700,000 in bowl revenue to the library. The idea concerned athletic director Dave Hart, who was already transferring $2 million from sports to the school. Instead of money going from the school to the sports, money was going from sports to the school. These are all notes and information that Matt Baker, the Tampa Bay Times, got after a couple of days of perusing through the Florida State Library. We have to enhance our scholarship endowment and build a reserve, Hart wrote to the president. If we fail to do this, we will find ourselves in dire straits as we enter the next decade. We have gender equity and facility demands that must remain a high priority. 29 years later, little has changed. Such a fine conference, despite occasional concerns and foreshadowing, the special collection files we perused were generally positive toward the ACC. There's a shiny 90s Christmas card from the league. Florida State president thanked Commissioner Eugene Corrigan for a handsome basketball tournament watch. And in December 1995, a few months after he wondered about the TV rights, Florida State's president wrote the league office with gratitude for the wonderful surprise gift of a beautiful ACC throw. And finally, in the article, thanks again for all your support of collegiate athletics at Florida State University. We have certainly enjoyed being part of such a fine conference. Job well done, Matt Baker, the great Matt Baker at the Tampa Bay Times. Himself and probably a few other at Tampa Bay Times went to the library at Florida State and gathered up all that information, notes. Holy smokes, what an incredible article. Just talking about the history of Florida State, decision to join the ACC. Wow, fascinating. I really wanted to read that article because those are the type of articles that get lost in the day-to-day breaking news of college football. It's hard to keep up. I did not want that great article because they put a lot of work into that article. I did not want that article to get lost, so I wanted to make sure that we started today's live show reading that article. Excellent, because there's breaking news continuously in college football. Here's breaking news. Pete Thamel, sources, today, Oklahoma has agreed to a new 6-year contract for Coach Brent Venables. The new 6-year deal includes a significant raise for Venables, and there's been an uptick in overall program commitment as Oklahoma heads to the SEC. Now, this is interesting, isn't it? Brent Venables got a massive contract. Oklahoma going to the SEC. I think they want to put out a vision, right? Saying that we're committed to Brent Venables, we're committed to the program, we're committed to recruiting, we're committed to facilities, we're committed, we are all aligned. The head coach is not going anywhere. I mean, his first 2 years, they really, and I don't have Oklahoma going to the playoffs this year either. I've got them coming, and I'm going to have them officially a week from this Monday. I'm going to have Oklahoma probably coming in 6th, 7th, or 8th place in the 16-team SEC. I think they got some issues on the offensive line. I'm wondering how the Sooner fans are going to think about this contract extension after this coming year. We shall see. We shall see. Now, one other aspect, before we get to the Big 12, before we dive into the Big 12, will they use any of their private equity money if they strike a deal? And I think they will. Will they use it for conference expansion? For some serious cloak and dagger. More dagger than cloak. But before we get into that, we did get some news. The Tallahassee judge denies the ACC's motion to dismiss Florida State lawsuit. The case will go forward. Broken by Liam Rooney, Tallahassee Democrat, earlier this afternoon. Now, we did a live stream over 6 hours, Monday, June, whatever day it was, June 18th. maybe not Monday. I don't even remember what day it was. I don't even know what day it is now. But we did a live stream over 6 hours. At the end of the live stream, Judge Cooper denied one of the motions, one of the counts on motion to dismiss by the ACC. Well, today it's official. It's in writing. Judge Cooper, Leon County, denied everything, the ACC. Everything. The months-long wait for a ruling from Leon County Circuit Judge John C. Cooper in Florida State University versus Atlantic Coast Conference lawsuit is over. In an email sent to the opposing legal team Friday afternoon, Cooper formally denied the conference motion to dismiss the case in Leon County, allowing the case to proceed through the state's legal system. The ruling comes after more than 2 months of discussion over 3 hearings, and we were live throughout those 3 hearings here at Peek Around the Corner. We covered it all here at PATC. In his email, Cooper also denied the motion to pause discovery. Cooper also denied the motion to pause discovery, a process that allows parties to obtain evidence before the trial. This would allow Florida State and the ACC to request contracts, communications, and other documents for use as evidence or to locate other evidence. The Tallahassee Democrat obtained a copy of the email reprinted below. Yeah, so we are on the road to discovery. Unless the ACC comes to the negotiation table. Cooper denied the motion to pause discovery. This is the email. Counsel, the following is my ruling on remaining portions of the ACC motion to dismiss and the ACC motion to stay. I'm not going to read this email. Basically, it's exactly what we just said. I'll put it up on the screen so you can go back and read it later. It goes through the history of all the motions and pleadings. The ruling comes just days after the third hearing between the 2 parties, in which Cooper denied the conference motion to dismiss based on personal jurisdiction and ruled that the remainder of the hearing would be done via paper or email communication. This is a similar ruling to what the ACC received in North Carolina, where a Mecklenburg County Court judge denied Florida State's motion to dismiss. This ruling opens the door for 2 simultaneous lawsuits to take place in both Florida and North Carolina as the ACC and Florida State continue to be locked in a marathon legal battle that has lasted since December. So there it is. Now we wait till July 2nd. We'll wait till July 12th in Mecklenburg County and in Pickens County between the ACC and Clemson. And we'll probably start getting some documents. We'll probably start getting some have to do with discovery, I believe, between Florida State and the ACC. We shall see. Now let's get to the big story in our monologue, our conversation with the Big 12 money perch. Now, first of all, just going through the comments. Okay. So what is this all about? will put down your comments and thoughts in the chat room. Give me a phone call when I open up the phone lines. Do you believe that the Big 12 will use any or all of their private equity money, if they strike a deal with private equity, to use for expansion of the conference? I'm going to get a lot of people upset. There's probably no college football YouTube channel that gets people more upset than this one. I'm surprised any of you are here watching this show. When we talked to the Big 12, and I was part of the conversation, this was not the Arizona State money perch who I've never talked to. This was somebody that I know, along with BTM and his associates. The conversation started with the money perch at a Big 12 institution saying, we don't know if the SEC or the Big 10 is going to expand. We don't know if their media partners are going to, now he didn't say media partners, but he said their media companies, whatever, if they're going to want to expand. We don't know. Like, they aren't really quite sure that the SEC is biting at the bit to expand, or the Big Ten. Now, I believe when it happens, when the ACC implodes, I think there's going to be movement. I've said that. So I do not share the same opinion. And of course, he's saying I'm not sure. He's not, of course, he doesn't know. He's just giving us the back. I'm giving you the backdrop of what he's about to talk about. He went on to say this might be the opportunity for the Big 12 to strike, to actually land big fish, because there's nowhere else for the fish to go. He gave a couple of scenarios. Now remember, everything that I'm about to tell you, he's had the same conversation with somebody in the athletic department of a Big 12 institution. It's not just somebody in this athletic department. It's a somebody. When the ACC implodes, there is a belief. This gentleman believes it, and the person that he was talking to, high up in a Big 12 athletic department, believes that Brett Yormark might be sitting there using private equity, something that the Big 10 and the SEC won't do. Might be sitting there with private equity to make sure that they are there to grab the highest value schools possible that's coming out of the implosion of the ACC. If the ACC, when it implodes, and Clemson and Florida State are leading the pack, because they're the ones that are pursuing it in the courts, and they're the ones that are going to be able to talk to the Big 10 first party talks, real talks. Depending on how those meetings go with the SEC and the Big 10, what if they don't go anywhere? This is scenario number one. I believe Florida State and Clemson will end up in a Power 2. I have no chalk up on the board because there's 1,000 variables. 1,000 variables. And this one actually was mentioned in our chat room, I think yesterday or the day before. And they're actually talking about it in the Big 12 athletic department. That if the Florida State and Clemson, now remember, when they reach a settlement, when it happens, and when that number is decided on, it ain't like Clemson and Florida State are going to be writing a check. They're not going to write a check until they know where they are going. Right? This is scenario number one. There's other scenarios we're going to get to. But what if Florida State and Clemson, what if for whatever reason the Big Ten, the SEC, you've heard reports that the SEC are not all that interested? I can tell you for a fact that, well, I reported it, that the Big Ten is hesitant to do anything until they really have conversations with North Carolina and Notre Dame. What if Florida State and Clemson have reached a settlement number, and it's a big one? It's not a small one. Remember, Florida State and Clemson want to get the hell out. And this could drag on for years. And they want to get out, or they want to get out. What if Florida State and Clemson then has a conversation with Brett Yormark? What if? Everybody relax. I'm not reporting. I'm not saying Florida State's going to the Big 12. They're having a conversation in the Big 12 athletic department on this. At least from a big booster to somebody in the department. That type of conversation. Open conversation. What if Yormark talked to Florida State and Clemson and said, that check that you owe the ACC, we'll take care of it. Or we'll take care of most of it. Almost all of it or all of it. Now the Big 12 fans are upset with me. First of all, Florida State and Clemson fans are upset for me even talking about it. And now the Big 12 fans are saying you're crazy. Well, what this gentleman said to me and BTM was, for example, scenario one, a Florida State and Clemson edition would pay for itself. Big 12 would have the money to pay for it. Because if this scenario happened, a Florida State Clemson addition to the Big 12 hikes up the Big 12's playoff money to each school probably by at least 25%. The Big 12 schools would go from about getting $12 million each to about $16 million, according to this gentleman's math. According to the percentages, according to the math that they use to decide which conference gets how much, because Clemson and Florida State have both. Clemson's won 2 national titles. Florida State won 1. According to their percentages, Big 12, they would take that extra college football playoff money and it would go and pay off the equity for the next 6 years, and they've got it paid off, or a lot of it paid off. No risk. No risk to the Big 12. None. According to this person. Now, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it sounds logical. And you can call me and tell me it's illogical. I'm fine with that. But this is a discussion that's actually being talked about. Okay. So what does Florida State and Clemson get out of it? What do they get out of it? Well, they have somebody writing the check. Now they can use a little bit of their booster money or their equity money to make sure that they can pay the $22 million for the next 4 years. It's not going to be as expensive to them. The grant of rights end in 2030 in the Big 12. They get out of the long-term grant of rights of the ACC. And they have options open to them in 2029 to 2030. And remember, it was paid for them. The money to get out has been paid. It's now what Florida State and Clemson are looking to do. They're looking to join the Big Ten or the SEC. So it's not the scenario that the Florida State and Clemson want. But it's probably better than having the SEC and the Big Ten say, no, we're not quite ready or whatever reason, and then have them go back to the ACC. Okay. I find that scenario incredibly unlikely from the angle of Florida State and Clemson. The Big 12, it makes sense. It does. Now, what about scenario 2, 3? Let's say same thing happens. The ACC implodes, and it's for a high number. 400 million each, 450 million each, 350 million each, whatever. High number. High number. And Florida State and Clemson starts talking to the Big Ten and the SEC, and there is interest. Florida State and Clemson goes to one of the two conferences. North Carolina and let's say Virginia goes to one of the two conferences. Those 4 schools are off the board. Scenario number 2 for the Big 12. Brett Yormark having that money in it, having that private equity deal arranged. ACC can't do this for reasons we believe. We've talked about it. Brett Yormark suddenly goes, what are the next 2 highest value pieces on the board? That number is high. That number is high. They're not going to be, whatever teams that we bring in won't be able to give us that automatic value jump when it comes to college football playoff distribution, because Miami hasn't won a national championship. Louisville hasn't won a national championship since the playoffs began. Pittsburgh hasn't won. Virginia Tech hasn't won. But scenario 2 is for the Big 12 to spread out payments for 2 or 4 of those universities. Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, Louisville, and Miami to join the Big 12. Now, the deal is here for the Big 12 is, yeah, they're not going to generate extra college football playoff money. They're not going to do it. They're not going to be able to do it. Not with those 4 teams included. But they're going to be in much, much, much better position for that 2029, 2030 media rights deal. Because you got to remember, if the Big 10 took 2 and the SEC took 2 and the Big 12 took 4, there is no conference, power conference number 3. Not any conference that is close to the Big 12 that is standing there. And the media rights scarcity brings up value, and the Big 12 is going to rock it. Again, scenario number 2. Not a whole lot. Is it a whole lot of risk for the Big 12? Here is another scenario. The Big 12 taking a little bit of that private equity money. A little bit of that private equity money. A slice of it. And doing what Brett Yormark wants to do. Bring in a UConn. Bring in a possible another Big East basketball affiliation. This Big 12 money perch doesn't believe Gonzaga is in the game at all. But if you brought in a UConn and a possible another Big East basketball affiliation Remember, the payouts are not going to be big to those schools, but are going to be more than what they get now. And you can buy off and get them in, buy off their exit fee, and you can increase a little bit, a slice of it, a tiny slice of that equity to do what Yormark has wanted to do, and to increase even more the basketball value, because the Big 12 and other people, Greg Sankey, believe the basketball value is going to shoot upwards. This discussion has actually been going on with a big-time money perch in somebody in the Big 12 athletic department. I don't know if this discussion's going on between Brett Yormark and other Big 12 presidents. I don't know. I do find it interesting that we haven't had reports, real reports yet, about exactly what the Big 12, how they would use this private equity money. We've had speculation. If you go read those first reports, the reporters are basically speculating, which is fine. And other people have speculated, which is fine. We're speculating tonight, which is fine, as long as we call it speculation. But there hasn't been real reporting, real information about exactly how the Big 12 would use the $1 billion or the $800 million or the $1.2 billion or whatever. We haven't had a breakdown. It hasn't been broken down. It hasn't been Utah's going to receive $6 million a year to help out paying the $22 million each year. West Virginia's going to get $8.8 million for their recruiting, blah, blah, blah. We haven't had any real reporting. It's been zipped up. So maybe Brett Yormark trying to position the Big 12 to be, without doubt, the third power conference, to put a gulf between Big 12 and anything below them, the ACC, once the ACC implodes. Is it Brett Yormark's design? Is it his mission? Is it his plan to use some of that private equity money, or a second wave of private equity money, to go out and actually, let's just be blunt, buy the next expansion candidates for the Big 12? Is that a possibility? Let's go to your comments. Let's go to your phone calls. It's speculation off a communication that we had with the Big 12 money perch inside a conversation, more than one conversation that he's had with somebody up the food chain at a Big 12 athletic department, and we can't say the university's name. Awesome, lots of clips. I'll say it again. Yormark is crazy enough to try it. I find it I think it's plausible from the Big 12's point of view. I'm not sure about the Florida State Clemson thing. That's a reach. I mean, they would have to absolutely get shut out by the Big 10 and the SEC to consider it. But the Big 12 thinks that's a possibility. Or this gentleman did. But these scenarios seem to work for the Big 12. I don't know if they work for the ACC. I don't know if they would work for an Awesome Loss and Clips Louisville. Maybe it would. To have their exit fee get paid, or a lot of it get paid by the Big 12. This was ensure the Big 12's increase. To me, before we get to your phone calls, to me, this is more bulletproof to increase the value of the Big 12 conference in years ahead than it is spending money on recruiting, making sure. Now, that also makes sense, of course, to ensure each of your schools to be able to pay the $22 million salary cap, all of it on recruiting, of course. But you know what? You can do all of that and still not punch above your weight. You can spend all that money and still not quite win those playoff games to increase your value of your conference. You can do all that and still not work out. It helps. It's going to give you a bigger margin of error if all the Big 12 schools go up to 22 million, but it ain't a sure route to increase your value. But buying, if the ACC implodes, and using that money to ensure that you get most of these big time schools into your conference, and you've got those relationships, those rivalries, West Virginia, Virginia Tech, West Virginia, Pittsburgh, Miami playing all these schools, Cincinnati, Louisville. Suddenly you've increased the value of a conference to enough where you can pay off that private equity. I'm going to get to your comments. I'm going to get to your phone calls. Let's open up the phone lines. Tell me how crazy the speculation is, or do you think there is something to this? Is Brett Yormark crazy enough or smart enough to actually try to pull this off? Give us a call. The phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. Give us a call. Ladies and gentlemen, give us a call. Wow. Hold on. I got to check a couple notes here.
Call from
Richard Brookins.
Richard Brookins, the floor is yours. Let it rip, sir.
Yes, sir. You know, Greg, the more I think about this, it could work in the event that the Big or the SEC did not want to take Florida State and Clemson. If something like that would happen, where Yormark would come in and basically pay for them to get out of the ACC, I think that if there's no other option, it's certainly a possibility. I would not rule it out.
Yeah. I think I think the Florida State and Clemson scenario is very, 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 very unlikely. But is when he went on to other scenarios that it started making a whole lot of sense for the Big 12 and for those schools. So I'm interested in what people think about. I know it's been people have been speculating it everywhere. I haven't done it on the show, but when we had a Big 12 money perch talking to us saying that it was a discussion inside a certain Big 12 university, it was like, okay, I think it's okay for us to speculate. We're just speculating, not reporting, but I think it's okay for us to speculate here at Peek Around the Corner. So you think there is a chance this could be pulled off?
If there was no other place for FSU and Clemson to go,
yeah.
If the expansion was shut down, say, for 4 or 5 years, and if they got a good enough deal, I mean, I don't blame the Big 12. Hell, I'd swing for the fences too.
Yeah.
The most they can do is say no.
Yeah. What do you think about what I would expect the more plausible scenario in which the Big 12 would help out the next when the ACC implodes, to be able to help out a Virginia Tech, a Pittsburgh, a Miami, a Louisville to join the Big 12. What do you think about that second scenario? Would that be worth it to the Big 12?
Yes, I think that would be worth it to them, and I think they probably will do that if the ACC implodes like some of us hope.
Yeah, yeah. All right, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate the phone call.
All right, bud. You guys have a good weekend. Talk
All
to you
right,
later.
you too. Beautiful, beautiful
Bye.
call. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Beautiful. So, first caller, thought maybe it was a chance of happening. Could happen. Possibly. Sam says Florida State, Miami have long ties together. Matt says, I don't hate the worth ethic, but I think Yormark is just shooting to shoot now. Hey, the only way you can score is if you shoot, right? The only way you can score is if you shoot your shot. Yay, Florida State won't go to the Big 12 because of the new P2 arrangement. Florida State won't go to the SEC if it has an equal opportunity in the Big 10 because ESPN was an unreliable partner, red-headed stepchild, Florida State. A lot of Seminole fans feel the exact same way.
Call from
Rod Nix.
Rod Nix is on the line. The floor is yours. Let it rip, sir.
Hello, my friend. Hope you're having a great day. You certainly have been busy.
Yes,
I'm
I've
gonna
been
try
busy. It's a trifecta day today. A lot of information. How are you doing, sir?
We're doing just great, but I think you are definitely on to something here. So if you give me a few moments, I got 5 points that I want to try to bring real quickly, and
You
then I'm
got
going to
it.
open the lines back up. Number
got it.
one, as I said in the chat, every Seminole fan should read that Matt Baker article. It is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Number two, Judge Cooper's ruling actually opens the door for the forgotten case. I also mentioned that in the thread. The forgotten case was on Monday, the 17th, when A.G. Moody filed her new 36-page request asking for the ACC media agreement. Now that Judge Cooper has moved all that out the way, the AG is actually asking for the judge not to rule, and they don't need a hearing. So if the judge rules and AG Moody gets that documentation, a whole lot of discovery is going to come out possibly faster than what we thought. So we definitely need to keep an eye on that. The next thing I want to...
A.G. Moody's case is not in front of Judge Cooper, though. It's in front of
It's not in front of Judge Cooper, but it is in front of another judge there in the circuit.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have to look at anything but this information. If I'm recalling correctly from both Baker's reporting and what I saw on 247 with Brendan Simone, the document basically says that the...
we lost
No, sir,
you.
it is not.
Okay, I repeat. We're losing you.
Can you hear me, Greg?
Yeah, you keep going in and out. Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to make it quick because signal is going back and forth.
Yeah.
It is not in front of Judge Cooper. You're absolutely correct. But there is a second judge in Leon County who has that case.
Okay, I'm gonna let you go, sir. You're going in and out on us.
call from
Cheeseburger aficionado, Jeff Fuller.
Cheeseburger expert. There is no cheeseburger aficionado expert because cheeseburger is horrific. It's the cheesification of America.
Blah.
Jeff Fuller is on the line. The floor is yours. And by the way, previous caller, please call again. Your phone was just going in and out. I had to disconnect you. I do apologize. Jeff Fuller, go ahead, sir.
Yeah. I feel for the other caller. I had the same problem yesterday. So
Yeah.
hopefully I got a good connection today. Shouldn't be a problem.
You sound good.
Yeah, but good. It's been some interesting days, and Yesterday I was calling, to comment on the Clemson situation, the ACC's, hey Clemson, let us handcuff you, because we promise we'll handcuff ourselves, but we're going to handcuff you too.
Yeah.
And look at us, look at us, Judge. We tried to handcuff them and they wouldn't let us. It's silliness. But on the other side, I've heard it explained by you and others that there's something in that contract with ESPN that, once Clemson is no longer a member of the ACC, that therefore they don't, owe their rights to the ACC, which again doesn't make any sense. I mean, that's like, let's say a couple is going to get married, and contracts are written for the divorce. Contracts aren't written for the marriage; they're written for the divorce. And let's say, they get a prenuptial agreement, and, spouse A and spouse B, and they make all these terms and everything in the event that there would be a divorce. Spouse A will get this and spouse B will get this. And then, they get divorced, or they're in the process of getting divorced. And, let's say they were able to do that. And they say, well, I'm not a spouse anymore. I'm a former spouse. So therefore this whole prenuptial agreement, it says spouse A and spouse B, but I'm a former spouse now, so it doesn't apply. So, it doesn't really pass the smell test to me that, there could be something that much of a technicality. It's almost, what do they say? It's a distinction, but not a difference, or vice versa. Distinction without a difference. Yeah. So, and that sort of applies with, most people, we're in the weeds of all the conference, consolidation, realignment. We see the day to day, and we know that Florida State and Clemson won out. We have some sympathy there just with, the ACC contract, but most people following this are like, hey, you guys signed the contract. No one was holding a gun to your head. They're and even if they were figuratively, you guys are big boys, you had legal advisors, you made the decision, and most people just feel, they just need to honor their contract. It's going to cost a lot, a big settlement in my mind to get out of that. And that makes me think as well, look at what just two members sticking together, Washington State and Oregon State, what they were able to get. They're getting quite a bit of money between the NCAA units, between payback. They're able to withhold some of the future monies of those schools, that they were able to negotiate out. The ACC is in a position of power, and I think people like Jack Swarbrick and others have sort of mentioned that. So I see where there's, I see the plight of Clemson and Florida State, but I don't know if I see an easy exit. I think it's going to cost a lot. And then, boy, if Washington State and Oregon State could, stick it out and get that much money, why won't the rest of the ACC stick it out? And I'm speaking as a, fan of a Big 12 school and a Big 12 fan in general, who, should benefit from an implosion of the ACC, picking up some brands. But, I just don't see the scenarios that you're mentioning about, using private equity to get Florida State and Clemson. Boy, that sounds like a pipe dream. I understand we're speculating, but even, sure, Clemson, Florida State would be huge additions and highly, additive to the average media value of the Big 12 media contract at the next iteration. But, Pitt fans don't want to come to the Big 12. They see themselves as above it, a little less so from Louisville fans. They may be sort of our style, but you see it from NC State fans. You see it from almost everyone in the Big 12, in the ACC, that would just be, as we saw from many Four Corner schools, this would just be a big, move down, whether it's academically or just perception-wise, to go to the, to the flyover country conference, the truck stop conference of the Big 12. So I know that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is, adding Pitt, that doesn't add any media value. Adding Virginia Tech is probably equal. There's several schools in the ACC that would dilute the value of the current Big 12 contract. Louisville may add a little bit. Miami probably adds a decent, it's definitely a plus, big brand there. But Clemson, Florida State would be huge, but I just don't see it happening. I don't see any scenario where they make out good in that. And to use that much private equity money to help those brands that are strong already, those fan bases that are strong already, into the Big 12 when they're just going to be looking at the next exit pathway possible. I don't know. Count me as skeptical there. That's my thought. One last point, I think I've called before about how I don't sympathize, and most SEC fans don't sympathize too much with Florida State's plight because of what you read about what happened, back in the 90s, them having the offer to join the SEC and being wanted, and them sort of spurning the SEC. A lot of people have long memories, and between between being spurned before and the fact that they don't really add a footprint, they don't really expand the map. They're surrounded by 4 strong SEC brands in LSU, Alabama, Auburn, Florida, and even Georgia. They're surrounded, so they don't really expand the map. And I keep hearing people say that they're a top 10 fan base, top 10 brand. I'd say, 15 tops, maybe 15, give or take a few spots, and maybe in a bigger conference, they are a bigger brand and worth more. But I mean, Dennis Dodd, we saw what he said, and maybe he has an axe to grind or something, but they're not quite as valuable as their fan base would have you believe, is what I would say, and definitely not to the SEC. I think they're more valuable to the Big Ten than they are the SEC, but still not as valuable as they think. So those are my comments. Love to hear what you say.
All right. Well, I mostly agree with you. That the Florida State Clemson thing is, I think, very highly unlikely. Like probably almost close to impossible. But he used that as a that second scenario he talked about. I think the Big 12 would be very interested in those 4 universities, and if they have to help them get out of the ACC, I think they would do it. I think since that scenario is, I think there's some potential to that. And then the other scenario, which is use just a little bit of that money to possibly add some basketball affiliated schools, which Brett Yormark wanted to do in the past, but the Big Ten presidents balked at it. Maybe this would grease the skids. Maybe the Big 12, if it's part of a larger plan with the equity money, maybe that will work. But yes, sir.
Yeah. No, I appreciate your comments. And again, just count me as skeptical that, if they didn't want to add UConn and or Gonzaga, they talked about the Big 12 presidents before, UConn won another championship, but their football adds nothing. And it would be, the devil's in the details. It'd be all about how long they would take a reduced payout. Is this something that because their football brand's so weak that they would take a reduced payout?
Yeah, this was a basketball
or not. So it would just be adding their basketball program.
Well, that's what this guy was saying. Yeah. So the third scenario is basketball affiliation scenario, and you're not using. Of course, you wouldn't be using a whole lot of that. Yeah. All right, Jeff. Yep.
That's a fun to hear that. I mean, UConn's an amazing basketball brand, and I know Kansas and Baylor and Houston fans are probably like, oh yeah, let's build that. But we know it's all about football. Basketball's on the rise. It's more valuable than maybe it's been portrayed over the last couple of decades, and appreciate your show. Great stuff, and have a great day.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Great call. Phone lines open, 763-260-1333. The first call, Rod Nix, thought there were some possibilities to it. Jeff Foley wasn't sold. Didn't think it was much of a possibility. But anyways, it's interesting. Conversations are being had at least at one athletic department. I mean, what do you think is, if, let's say the deal is $1 billion. $1 billion for, let's say, 20% stake of the conference. Do you think all $1 billion? Because and another reason we're talking about this today on June 21st, Friday, is because I think there's a real possibility that there's going to be an equity deal struck. Now, when this was reported on over a week ago, it also was reported that Brett Yormark did not want this out there at this time. It's one of those stories that you don't want broken until it's done. There's a real possibility that this is going to happen. So I just want everybody, talk about it before it happened, just so we can go back and say what we thought, before the deal was struck. Do you think if they strike a deal for $1 billion, do you think all that money, all that $1 billion is going to go to the same thing? And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It could be a great thing. But do you think all $1 billion is going to go to help all 16 universities pay for their $22 million salary cap for student athletes for the next 6 years? All $1 billion is going to go to the same thing. Maybe it will. Do you think that's the case? Or are they just going to allot money to schools and they decide what to do with it? Or, and again, this came from this Big 12 money perch. This is a conference. This is a conference-driven private equity deal. This is not a BYU driven. This is not a Baylor driven. This is not a Utah driven. This is not a West Virginia driven. This is not a Cincinnati driven. This is not a Louisville driven. This is a conference-wide equity deal. So does Brett Yormark want to have...
Call from
JD.
JD, hold on for one moment, please. Just going to finish a
Sure.
thought before it slips out of my old mind. If this is an equity deal, if this is a conference-wide equity deal, Brett Yormark may want to have all the strings connected to the conference and to use that money to ensure increase value of the conference. And the straightest shot to get that done is to help some ACC schools come on aboard once the implosion happens. Jeff Foley doesn't think Pittsburgh or Virginia Tech, I believe, doesn't think. I believe a combination of Virginia Tech and Louisville and Pittsburgh and Miami. I think that would bring, and especially when you consider if Clemson and Florida State are gone, North Carolina, Virginia are gone to the Big Ten and the SEC, whatever combination, and then the next four are gone. The ACC might still exist as a conference, but it ain't going to be a Power 4. It's going to be a Power 3. Scarcity brings up value. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. The more I talk about it, I'm talking myself into the possibility that Yormark wants this lined up, and he's going to pull the trigger if the ACC implosion happens, and then he can swing this money around to everybody in the ACC. Say, are you interested? Are you interested? We'll help pay out your whatever it takes to get out of the ACC. You come aboard, and then we'll have an assurance from our media partner Fox or conference football playoff money or whatever it is. We think we can make it up and more in the long run. I think the second scenario. I think the third scenario is something that I think we probably should just keep an eye on. The first scenario, the Florida State Clemson one, I think is I think it's pie in the sky, but it opens up the thought of your mark using that. If this $1 billion, man, are you going to just hope and pray that you win more football games? Or are you going to use it to increase the conference through buying schools that you know through valuations of your media partners that will up the value of your conference high enough so you can pay back on the private equity? JT, Mr. Seminole, thanks for calling. The floor is yours.
How you doing today, sir?
Doing good. It's been a very busy day today. We did an episode for members. We did an episode for everybody, and now a live show. It's been a very busy day here in the studio. How is your day going, happening?
Oh, just spectacular.
Good.
You know, but anyway. Couple things. You're talking about FSU potentially, and I understand you're just throwing out scenarios. I'll say this, the confidence around the people around the program for FSU, and I'm not talking about just the fans, but people in the know, I don't think the Big 12 is going to be a destination. But let's just say, you know, like you say, things go pear-shaped. I would think it would have to be an unequal revenue sharing kind of a deal. They would have to close that gap between what they're getting in the ACC versus the Power 2, the P2, because the one thing that the ACC does have, what is it? What's the phrase? Where you make the playoffs, you get an extra share of revenue. So potentially, if you're making the playoff and you get into like the second round, you might clear 75, 80 million, something like that. So there's a few factors that would make FSU and Clemson's, and again, I can't speak for Clemson because I don't have any inside knowledge or know people that are insiders there. So I just lump those two together. But so to spend all the money just to go to the Big 12, I don't see the benefit. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Big 12 does do the unequal revenue sharing, or they figure out some other incentives, and then the fact of the ACC somewhat imploding increases the Big 12 share significantly, like you said, in the playoff and maybe other aspects. I don't know. I'm not gonna squash it and say it's a bad idea or it's not plausible, because if FSU doesn't go to the Power 2, they got to go somewhere. You know, so you never know. But so we'll just kind of see how this plays out. Concerning your article earlier, or you talk about Matt Baker's article, I have said in the past that FSU's never received an invite from the SEC. That's true, but they pulled the trigger with the ACC before the SEC invite came. So technically, an SEC invite was going to come. It was coming. They were negotiating with both, and there were some inside of FSU that wanted the ACC. There was some that would lean at the SEC, but the ACC with the administration was kind of playing out. With Bobby, Bobby catches a lot of flack, but the thing with Bobby, what it was, from what I understand, he wanted to make sure that they were playing Florida and Miami every single year, every year. And that, from what I gather from those that know the history of the whole thing, going to the SEC, the rivalry, the continued rivalry with Miami might have fallen away, and I know Bobby didn't want that. Bobby gets treated like he was the deciding factor. He's the football coach. The board of trustees were the ones making the decision. Did they consult him? Oh, absolutely. Did they move along with what he wanted in a lot of ways? Sure, but he would have been more than happy to go to the SEC if he could have guaranteed that not only Florida but Miami also had remained on the schedule. So anyway,
Yeah.
And but yeah, the whole
any
big
info, any juice, any steam from the Florida State insiders that you can share today.
Well, when I called in yesterday, you and I talked a little bit, and others this morning on Twitter. I had told you I was going to go back and look for some of those articles on the composition clause, and just
Yes, sir.
coincidentally, before I started looking, a couple people on the War Chant chat had posted some of those links.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to go looking. I don't know where Brett McMurphy, and it was Brett McMurphy. I couldn't remember if it was McMurphy or Dellinger, came out with the article last year talking about the composition clause, and it had to do with the membership number of 15.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only one that brought that up, because everywhere else, I thought, because that's why it threw me off, because I had thought it only concerned multiple members leaving or increasing the membership. So in other words, if 2 members leave, technically ESPN has the ability to trigger the composition clause and renegotiate the whole deal. So you and I had a long conversation about the 15-member threshold.
Yeah.
I was basing that on his reporting last year. That might not be a factor, or maybe there's another aspect of the composition clause that states that. I don't know. But
I had a I believe that one of the reasons why it says in the conference ACC bylaws, and I know you're arguing a different angle on this, but one of the reasons, not the only reason, that is stated in the ACC bylaws that you need to file your notice of withdrawal on August 15th, by or before August 15th, to be able to leave the conference July 1st the following year, is to give the conference an opportunity to backfill if they need it or if they want it. It gives them plenty of time to backfill. Because again, if you just file your notice of withdrawal, or if you declare we're out of here, whatever, it doesn't mean the ACC loses a member. It means they're gonna lose a member. They're gonna lose a member on July 1st the following year. So I think the composition clause and everything, I think it's interesting, but from my vantage point, I could be wrong, I don't think it's driving any boat. If you read the reporting of Brett McMurphy, if you go back and read it, he does say the reason they were proactive is because they wanted to have an opportunity to get a Stanford, to get a California. They didn't want, if they would let them go and then schools do file notice of withdrawal and they do leave so many months later, then the ACC might only be down to G5 schools to backfill, so they were taking the opportunity to backfill now with schools that they would want, a Stanford and a California. So I don't know. I'm not sure the composition clause, and of course I don't know what it says in the media rights agreement. None of us do. That's another problem to all this. But I don't know.
Sure.
What are your thoughts? Those are my thoughts.
Well, you've got those two out of West. Well, actually, you've got three out of West Virginia. And you've got Coos, and then you've got the dude, and then what's the other one? Is it Mhiver or Mhver or whatever?
Yeah.
Three, I think that's his Twitter. He was talking about a few weeks ago that that's his little thing right now. Is it's 3 minutes till midnight for the ACC. In other words, and when he posted his thing talking about 4 teams will leave, 2 will go north, 2 will go south, 2 will have blood on their hands. And that was his little, I don't know.
I don't know what I don't read his stuff.
But
I don't know what he's saying. What is all
but
that
you
mean?
you talk about him. You talk about Josh Pate expecting that the ACC will lose members with and it could be coming quickly.
Did Josh Pate ever say anything about his tweet?
I don't think he ever really elaborated.
Okay, all right.
The only thing that I can think of that would trigger some type of movement to that level is the composition clause, because the schools don't have the ability to invoke it. But if FSU and Clemson leave, ESPN will absolutely trigger it, because that's 30-something, 35% of your media value just walked out the door. They will keep the ACC, but the deal won't stay the same. So it's the same thing that would happen next February. They just have the ability to open it up as soon as possible. And they have the ability to – but if you do that, the grant of rights no longer applies, because the deal changes. There's enough of a material change that you still have exit penalties. You still have to do all the rest of that. So I think, and somebody else had messaged me earlier today, and they made a really good point. And I mean, I agreed with this, the same mindset, but the reason I'm bringing it up because other people have the same viewpoint is that the composition clause is a threat, is what it is. And FSU can remind them that, hey, we know it's there, we know it's real, we know what's in there. We'll do it. We'll announce. We'll leave. We'll force ESPN's hand, because we know what they'll do. ESPN doesn't want to lose money. They're just not going to. And we can force all this, but there's fallout to all that. There's a lot of fallout, because if you force the ACC implosion, you think FSU and Clemson are villains now? You just wait. I mean, and that's where some of these. When he was talking about 2 will have blood on their hands, that's what he was talking about. That's what he was talking about. And I mean, I can't think of any other scenario. But, we talked yesterday. Nobody's backtracked on announcing next week, but at the same time, apparently things are going really well behind the scenes. So they might not. I don't know. I mean, and that's not just Regal hinting around to that. There's I know Chris from Sporadics. Believe it or not, Chris is pretty tied in with some people at the administration, and I caught the first few minutes of his show last night. And
what did he say?
Well, I don't remember verbatim. I had to work late. Even though I'm self-employed, sometimes I have to work late.
Yeah.
And I just remembered driving along. It was late yesterday evening. I was catching, I didn't stream it. I didn't listen to it live. I was catching it later. But just was talking about the lawsuits, and things are going well. The result of the lawsuit is not necessarily the manner that will allow FSU to leave, but I mean, maybe you want to give it the first 5 or 10 minutes if you want to, and you kind of get a little bit of a hint. Nothing revealing, but you kind of catch the tone and the tenor is what I'm saying. And so I think, I mean, they're having negotiations, I believe, behind the scenes, but I think there's still some posturing, or you know, everybody's trying to get their upper hand with some of the rulings today. You would assume that Discovery can start almost immediately, but you know the ACC is going to appeal.
Yeah.
They appealed the first part of the ruling, so
Yeah.
now they're going to appeal. They're going to appeal today, which is going to delay things a few months.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, a settlement would be easier for everybody.
Yes, sir.
And but the only one thing I did want to say, Jeff Fuller is very knowledgeable, and I respect a lot of the things I see on him with that. I don't think he's an FSU fan at all, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But FSU was rated before the 2022 season a top 12 brand as far as their net worth. And in 2022 and 2023 seasons, they've gotten back to their winning ways. So I would assume even being in the ACC, they're a top 10 brand. Just imagine what they would be in the Power 2.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
But anyway.
All right, man. Thank you, JT.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Appreciate the call,
Thank
sir.
you for the time.
You got
Thank
it.
you for the time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
All right,
sir.
bye-bye.
Great call by Mr. Seminole, JT. Eric Ruby, private equity money for the Big 12 expansion is not a good idea. Big 12 members will need that money to stay relevant through 31. Florida State and Clemson would bolt in 31 anyhow. Waste of money, in my opinion. Eric Ruby, thank you for the super chat. A whole lot of people would agree with you. But what about the second scenario? What about the third scenario that we talked about? But thank you, Eric Ruby, for the super chat. Thank you for your generosity, helping us keep the lights on. I do appreciate it, Mr. Eric Ruby. There was a comment here, King Spleen. The Sports Business Journal posted a 2011 article talking about the composition clause. It said so the ACC or ESPN going back to the table to negotiate is based on losing or gaining two teams. I did read the article. It was talked about it a little bit with JD and others. It's an interesting article. The problem is, for me, is it's a 2011 article. It was even before the grant of rights was established. I don't know what is in that media rights agreement. None of us do. I don't know if that's in there anymore. That two team, I don't know. That's the problem.
Call from
Moneybags, Brett Yormark.
to accept press.
Hold on a second. Ryan Thomas?
Yes, sir.
Hold on. I got to do a little rant here.
Oh, Greg, I love your rants, and it's actually the reason why I call is so I can listen to them directly. So rant away.
It's going to be a short one. It's going to be a short one.
Go. Take your
and
time.
It's about football. And it's about the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Boy, my old man is rolling in his grave, Greg.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mike Farrell put up an article, and it was, it's fine. It's a fine article. Will Nebraska finally take control of Iowa and Wisconsin in 2024? I did not, I kept my cool. Minnesota doesn't play Nebraska this year for the first time in many, 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 many years. So I stepped back. I was just being an innocent bystander, just stepping back. And then Jim in Minnesota, Mr. Husker fan, puts up a part of the article that Mike Farrell read. It got it up on the screen that Mike Farrell wrote. Indeed, Nebraska is ready to assert itself as a national brand and to put Iowa and Wisconsin back in their places as they have always seen it. Rule is exercising the demons of past mistakes that set the program back 2 decades. Nebraska is emerging as a complete team, culture, and program. Mike Farrell says this will be interesting to track, and I put my comment. Let's first see Nebraska put Minnesota behind them. Because honestly, the Gophers have eaten the Cornhuskers' lunch for the last 7 years. Hold on a second. Hold on. I am very pro Nebraska this year. I think they're going to go 8-4. I like Dylan Raiola. He's a true freshman quarterback. He's got all the talent in the world. This country is going to see it very, very soon. But my goodness, Nebraska is going to put, they're finally going to take control of Iowa and Wisconsin. They need to take control of Minnesota first. Minnesota has been so much the better football program. And I don't even think these national writers even understand that. Minnesota has beaten Nebraska 5 straight years. Since Nebraska has joined the Big Ten, Minnesota has beaten Nebraska more than Minnesota. Minnesota was a top 10 football team in the country, ranked number 10 at the end of the year in 2019. Minnesota is 5-0 in bowl games since Nebraska went to a bowl game. Minnesota has outdistanced, outclassed, outhit, outrun, outscored, outcoached, outplayed Nebraska time and time and time and time again. And I'm wondering, I've come to the point where I'm wondering, do even these college football writers even know that? Or is it just brand? Brand? Is that it? Is that all there is? Whoever has the highest recruiting class in the country has won the off season, and that's more important than what you actually do on the football field. Cornhusker fans, I love you. You're an incredible large fan base. But my goodness, national writers, Iowa and Wisconsin, Nebraska has to beat Minnesota first. They have to finish in front of Minnesota. They haven't done that in years. First, before Nebraska becomes this nationally relevant program once again. And that, my friends, is a message from this old Minnesota, fat guy from Minnesota, Golden Gopher heart. It's a pumping. It's starting to pump. It's June 21st. College football is just right around the corner here at Peak Around the Corner. Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours.
Well, Greg, my old man is crying in his grave. He was a big Husker fan, and I watched a lot of Husker football with him growing up. But you're right. That offensive line does not have me convinced. I'm not convinced on that rule. I know a lot of people are high on him, but I'm just not convinced on him. But I will just say this. You're right on those national writers. It's the same reason why people like Bruce Feldman have schools like Penn State in their projected college football playoff when, we all know that Penn State's going to choke.
I had Penn State winning it all last year.
well,
I'm an idiot. That's my excuse. I'm an idiot.
But, but here's the issue, and you're absolutely right, Greg. The Nebraska Cornhuskers, the farmers, they've got a major gopher problem in their fields. They got a major gopher problem.
They do.
And those gophers are popping up and eating the corn, and they've even got some evil badgers going through there and wrecking havoc on things. There.
I will say this, then you can get to the subject at hand that you wanted to call about. I will say this. Dylan Raiola, their quarterback, their true freshman quarterback this year, I think they have an offensive line issue. Their running back room is not very good. Their wide receiver room is a lot better than it has been. But Dylan Raiola is the real deal, and he's going to be spectacular. And Nebraska's going to go to a bowl game. So I've only got a couple more months left to where I can rub it in on the Cornhusker fans. But anyways, Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours. What do you got to say?
Well, he'll be running for his life, Greg. I mean, that. Now, I mean, if he can stay around, if he sticks around, then I think that that they very well could be in a good spot. I mean, they could. I mean, but just not having offensive line protection and not having running backs being able to step up. I mean, the guy could. Those young guys try to do it all themselves, and they get injured, and just things can go pear-shaped really quick. So, I mean, I've seen this before, and I mean, in national writers, you're right. Let's be honest, a lot of them, you can be pessimistic, but to be fair, a lot of them are so busy covering a lot of things that I think all they can see is the previous year and brand and hype, and they may not necessarily have the time to dig into everything.
Yeah.
I think that's just a reality with the profession. I think if you really want to know what's going on, you need to be talking to local writers, but you also need to be, going on to the actual local boards, the diehards, to kind of get a feel for how things are developing during spring ball and during, summer camp and things like that, or fall camp. I think that's the only way you're really going to get a feel for this. But going to your point, I don't know if I don't think the Big 12 is going to use private equity money for expansion. I think that's probably going to be more or less used to compete. I think that these schools will probably use that money to compete as far as salary and other things needed to bring in talent and players. I think it's probably going to go towards coaches and getting the talented players necessary to compete. Because really, like I said, I told you before, this is kind of like the gamble at the blackjack table here for Brett Yormark. The goal here is the 2031 bridge. That's the goal here. That's when the TV deal comes up. And if you're Brett Yormark, what you need to do is you need to make sure that your schools can compete financially enough financially to have teams. If the Big 12 can put 2 or 3 teams in the playoffs every year, for the next 6 years, if they can get, at worst 2, but on average, if they can get two or 3 teams a year in the playoffs, for the next 6 years, which is a very, 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 very lofty goal, and a difficult thing. But if they can do that, then they will improve their position with the CFP money for the next deal and with any TV contracts. Now, I realize that is a tall order and a very difficult thing, but I see that that's what that money would be used as, would be basically a gap to compete for talent with the SEC and Big Ten. Now, before everyone jumps down my throat and yells at me in the chat, and half of you don't ever listen to what I say anyway, this is. Keep in mind, this is a gamble. They have no other choice, and we would all do the same thing. Will it work? I don't know, but it could work. But really, this is what you're trying to do. You have to do this because it's the only way to improve your position for the next TV deal, and also maybe even on CFP look-ins. But it's the only way to improve your position. So I think you have to, and that's what you use the money for. That's exactly what you use the money for. I mean, that's what they're trying to do with all these sponsorships. That's what they're trying to do with everything. And, sometimes with the stadiums necessarily, I think SEC schools and Big Ten schools will be spending a lot of money on things like stadiums and new facilities and all this. And, that is a factor in player recruitment, but a big factor in player recruitment, too, is coaches and basically opportunities. And I think that the Big 12 is probably going to be focusing on trying to retain their coaches as much as possible and their connections. And, that's what I think this money is going to go to. I don't see any, I think ultimately the Big 12 is sort of, they're not in the same position as they were with the Pac-12.
No.
You know, they're not there to crack open the clam. You know, this time the Big 12 is more or less, and I'm a Big 12 fan, but I'm going to say this gently and lovingly. Right now, they're kind of the scavenger, and you know, depending on what happens and how the ACC cracks open and how much and what does happen, you know, that will determine. I mean, the Big 12 could probably pick up. They may only pick up one school. They could pick up 4 schools. I really don't know, and I don't think it's a certainty. You know, I certainly don't think it's a certainty. You know, outside of Louisville, I don't think it's really a certainty they'll pick up anyone else. Now, they could pick up some brands that they probably didn't expect to pick up, good or bad. But at this point, I think that that money's got to be used for making sure that you put your conference in a position that it can get back into the game eventually and close the gap to a point that you'll be good, you know, good for the future. So this is really banking on the future and providing, it's providing liquidity needed to compete in the future. No different than a business borrowing money versus a business that doesn't have to borrow money. But if they both have good management and good leadership and good skills, you know, they'll both be able to compete for business. And, you know, ultimately one will, you know, the idea is they can get on the even playing field eventually. But those are just my thoughts, everyone. Thanks for all you do, Greg. Yes, I agree with you. You know, those Gophers have put a lot of holes in the cornfields, a lot of holes. And, you know, and those mischievous Badgers have just been, you know, just rummaging through everything while the Hawkeyes have been, you know, going over there and picking off everything left and right in the field. So I agree with you. The Cornhuskers need to focus on getting their fields in order before they can start bragging about their crops. Thanks, Greg. Bye-bye.
You got it. Appreciate it. Great call, Ryan Thomas. There isn't, I cannot read the article because it's under a subscription. It's under a subscription. I'm going to reach out. I'm going to reach out to, I got a couple of Illinois contacts. And if Illini Ted or anybody else, any other Fighting Illini PATC member is listening to me right now, and if you have a subscription to IllinoisGuys.com, I want to talk with you. So get a hold of me at Flug Empire. You can read it at the bottom of the screen. Get a hold of me, DM me. DM me on X at Flug Empire, search bar at FLUGEMPIRE, Flug Empire. There is, since we've been on live, an article was released, and I don't have a subscription. We do have Illini fans in the PATC community, and a couple of them do talk to me. Illinois Athletic Director Josh Whitman addresses concerns over potential college athletic super league. in his annual meeting, in his annual media roundtable yesterday morning. That's one of the Fighting Illini PATC members, Jamie. Illinois Athletic Director Josh Whitman addresses concerns over potential college athletics Super League. In his annual media roundtable yesterday morning, University of Illinois Athletic Director Josh Whitman cited concerns over his school's resume for a future Super League scenario in college sports. Matt Stevens, Illinois Guy staff writer, June 21st, 2024. This was just released. When Josh Whitman was asked about a possible concern over University of Illinois athletics being left out of a future consolidation into a Super League formula for college athletics, it was a one-word answer. Yes. The Illinois 8-year athletic director said Thursday morning, without a doubt. I think we talk about that extensively here in meetings. And the rest of it is behind an article that I'm going to try to get my hands on. Now, a Super League, of course, here at Peek Around the Corner, we believe that there was no chance of it happening for 2026. But as the years go on, it's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. We'll see. You know, there is worry in Nebraska that they're not doing enough academically to possibly stay in the Big Ten. Illinois, and I'm sure a whole bunch of universities out there that are not the blue blood programs, are waiting to see what happens years down the road. 6 years down the road, is the pressure for more consolidation? Is it going to rear its head? Is it going to make the Big Ten schools and the SEC schools, the top schools of both those leagues, consolidate into a Super League? Is there going to be a Super League of 80 teams? I don't think so. 70 teams? I don't think so. 60 teams? I don't think so. But what if there's a Super League of 24 teams, of 32 teams, of 48 teams? Who's going to be in? Who's going to be out? Josh Whitman, in a little bit of I could read in this article, says that they talk about it. He's worried about it. Does Illinois have the resume to get in if there's more consolidation ahead? We don't know, ladies and gentlemen. We don't know if the economics of consolidation is still going to be with us 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now. We don't know if different economics, if these large conferences are going to be starting to fracture. I can tell you this. People say, Greg, what are you going to do? Now, I talk everything college football. I talk about everything. You see me do a deep dive in these conferences. I talk college football. There's going to be a lot to talk about. Always in college football. People in the chat room and phone calls have said, Greg, what are you going to do in the ACC when all this is done? There'll be no more realignment, no more drama. What are you going to talk about? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We're going to have contracts. We're going to have salary caps. We're going to have discussions on, I'm going to have discussions with Jamie Thornton on why did Arkansas spend $250,000 on their backup quarterback when Auburn is only spending $180,000. We're going to be talking college football 365 days a year. Drama, drama, drama. And by the way, for those who ask, Greg, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Realignment never sleeps, number one. Drama in college football never dies, number two. The history, the pageantry, the passion, the game that we all love, we're nuts about. It ain't going away. It's going to change more and more and more and more. And we're going to be covering it all here at College Football's Peek Around the Corner. Even if my Minnesota Golden Gophers drop down to Division III, I'm going to be covering them. I'm sorry, I just am. The evil Hawkeyes, the evil Badgers, the Razorback, the Auburn Tigers, the Georgia Bulldogs, on and on and on and on. We at College Football, Peek Around the Corner, try to do, and we think we do a pretty good job. We've got a really good, I'll let you decide on it. We give you the best peek around the corner in the business. That peek around the corner, the drama of it is not going away. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen 6 years from now. I don't got a clue. And I'm honest enough to tell you, I don't even got a clue what's going to happen 6 weeks from now. But I tell you what's the chatter behind the curtain. Buckle up, brace for impact. If Illinois is worrying about a Super League, if they've got the resume to squeeze in, Minnesota's definitely worried about it. Purdue's definitely worried about it. Maybe 3 or 4 SEC programs are worried about it. Holy smokes. The drama will never stop. So don't worry about this show. Just keep coming. Just keep coming. Every single time you have an opportunity, join us for College Football's Peek Around the Corner. I want to thank everybody in the chat who's come on in. The great phone calls, the donation to help us keep the lights on. Saturday night is all right for PATC. We're going to be doing a show tomorrow night. So buckle up, brace for impact. More information on the way. More stories percolating. Hopefully, with my Illinois Peek Around the Corner community, we're going to be able to get to this article. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. I don't care how uncomfortable it is for Minnesota, Illinois, Purdue. We talk about all the uncomfortable stuff that is going on with Florida State and Clemson and Oregon State and Washington State and everything else. Everybody's uncomfortable. Everybody is uncomfortable. I tell you what, I'm uncomfortable in this heated, hot studio. So we're going to continue on. We're going to continue forward until next time. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you have your notifications turned on. And make sure you have smashed that like button if you've liked our content today. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.